Digital marketing. We all hear that buzzword. That's why probably people have clicked on the video. What does that mean, Michelle? When I say digital marketing, I know that sometimes makes you cringe. What does that mean to you?
Well, digital marketing is actually marketing, right? So it's not something that gets parsed out from, there is no such thing as traditional and digital marketing. It is just all marketing. And the reality is the world is no longer, we don't operate in silos. People don't consume communication that way. They don't consume brands that way. They don't get their information that way. And so to think of it as this thing that lives on its own is actually a very antiquated idea, right? It goes into the overall marketing mix. It's like any other tactic. It has its place, right? And so I think when you think about digital marketing, we just need to think about it today in terms of marketing as a whole.
And Laura, when you hear digital marketing and people are coming to you, what are you seeing they want, or what are they looking for?
Well, it's all about driving people to the website. That, I think, is one cornerstone that has been there since websites first came about, 25 years ago or so, when they first really came into prominence. But it's about driving people to the website to learn more, to find out more information, and hopefully then to connect with you and continue down the sales funnel. So it's any type of tactic that would help drive people to the website, whether it be social media, webinars, email communications. We're consuming so much information online nowadays. I would count all of those as digital marketing.
And Kelley, you lead our digital effort at Empirical and ECS. What have you seen people coming to you when they say, "Hey, I need some digital marketing help"? What are they usually looking for from you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think most importantly, they're trying to get found online. They recognize that consumers and users are on these different platforms, whether it's social or Google search, and they're trying to be found, and they're trying to let their brand and presence be known in hopes that they can engage with those consumers and eventually be contacted to sell their products or services. So when we talk about search engine optimization, SEO, or pay-per-click, or websites that perform highly, it's all about getting people to see you as they're interacting with the internet.
So a couple of years ago, we had this thing called COVID, and a pandemic hit. I don't know if you remember that, but it changed the way a lot of our clients did business. What did you see? What difference did you see out there? And let's start with Laurel. You do a lot of work in the industrial and manufacturing space, and along with some other spaces. But what did you see when the pandemic hit?
So when the pandemic hit, all of a sudden the face-to-face interactions could not take place anymore. And so many B2B clients in particular, B2C to a certain degree, but especially B2B, their sales teams really rely on making sales calls or going to conferences and events and shaking hands and having dinners and doing all the social things in real time, face to face. So when the pandemic hit, we saw the very smart companies look to change on a dime and look to add in new marketing tactics to their mix so that they could basically help bridge the gap. We didn't know if the pandemic was going to last a couple of weeks, a couple of months. It's been, here we are 2+ years later, and now we're just starting to get back to normal. And when businesses were able to identify that they needed to look to more online tactics, that is something that's really hit a lot of different industries when the pandemic started. And I think that's going to continue now. I think many businesses are not going to go back to the way that they used to do business, exclusively. They're going to now have adapted and added in new tactics that we've seen be so successful over the last 2.5 years.
Yeah, that's a great point. Kelley, you've seen a lot of changes, I would say, from websites in the digital world since the pandemic hit as well. What are you seeing from a standpoint? What are your customers looking for? Are they asking for different things than they did 2 years ago?
Absolutely, yeah. And as more and more businesses and more users move online, the competition has become fierce. And so there's all types of new tactics and trends for getting those organic search results, getting those clicks, competing with but higher ad budgets. So it's very interesting because if you take a multi-channel approach, you can always find an opportunity. And where you might see a big competitor in one space, you can take over another. So really just doing that competitive analysis and at defining your audience, seeing where they're interacting online, and identifying that opportunity where you can make your mark, stand out from the crowd.
No, that's a great point. And I think you guys have kind of touched on this, but in the world of B2B, B2C, or even business to government, are you seeing, historically, I think a lot of folks thought of digital marketing as a transactional type of environment that B2C companies played in. Are you seeing those lines starting to go away and both B2B and B2C play in that same arena?
Absolutely. I think that, what the pandemic taught us is everybody needs to be more in the digital world. And we were talking about videos just a little bit ago. Videos are something that every industry, every company can use to a certain extent. Humanizing the brand, that's something that digital marketing allows companies to do like they never have before as well. So I crossover between B2C and B2B, in terms of the tactics that are most effective. Yes, there's definitely a merging together of the same type of tactics that both need to use.
Completely agree. Any input there, Kelley, on the B2C? You as well have a huge diversity of types of clients, both B2C and B2B. Are you seeing those lines blur a little bit more where it's important to both sides?
Absolutely. I mean, I think at one point there was kind of this split division of where you would reach consumers on social platforms and where you would reach businesses on LinkedIn or email. And now those lines are really blurring, and businesses and consumers are on all of those platforms. And I think it's interesting, what we were talking about with expectations. I think that consumers and businesses' expectations have changed since the pandemic. And really, you're not competing with your competitors. You're competing with the last experience that your customer had with your competitor. And with the access of information and just the influx of businesses and promotion and advertising online, you really can make your mark and stand out and blur those lines and have very successful digital campaigns, both on B2B and D2C side.
Michelle, anything you'd like to add there?
Actually, Laurel and Kelley, I think are exactly right. And, it's an interesting question. When you ask the question, that comes up a lot, right? Does B2B function very different from B2C? And the truth is, like, even as consumers, the way that we consume communication, we don't change when we're consuming as an individual buying a product for ourselves or our homes versus if we're a professional consuming a product or service from another business, right? Those lines have always been to some degree a figment of our imagination. I think now the B2B side is finally catching up with the way that we actually consume communication and consume brands. So
yeah, good insight. So you're a B2B business leader out there, and you're looking to develop or create a marketing strategy that includes digital and other components. How would you start that? What does that look like to you guys?
Well, I usually start out with identifying your audience and figuring out who they are, where you're going to reach them, how you want to engage with them. Another important component is analytics and reporting. You have to set baselines, your goals, your KPIs. And if you don't have a way to measure your campaign, how do you know to improve it? So starting off with those definitions, identifying the audience, making sure your reporting analytics is in place. I think the next step is to identify that multi-channel approach, where you're going to have these campaigns live. If they're email blasts, if they're social ads, if it's pay-per-click, but knowing, how you're going to make that a very cohesive strategy. If you send an email to somebody and then they see an ad online and then they get a LinkedIn feed, it should all be very comprehensive, and they should see your brand and the consistency throughout all of those different elements. And once you get them in with that lead generation strategy, nurturing them, having different touch points and drawing them in to that buyer's journey. So I think those are all the elements that I try to think of right away when putting together a strategy.
Great points. And I saw Michelle sort of kind of shift and smile when you said consistency and brand, because I know, Michelle, brand and developing a brand is really important to you. Does that play into when you're building a marketing strategy, a tactical digital marketing strategy and a go-to-market strategy?
Yeah, so actually for me, what I was going to say is, I take it sort of one step further, right? There are two components to any marketing strategy. There is the business and then there is the brand. And oftentimes we think of those things as the same, but they could be very different, right? Brand perception, right? If I need to change brand perception, that lives on its own versus do I need to grow the business by X%? They work together, but there are different tactics that do those, that accomplish those goals. And I think, for me, when I think about a digital marketing strategy, i.e. a marketing strategy, I go back to what are the goals, right? What is it that we need to achieve in 3 months, in 6 months, in 12 months, in 24 months? And then the strategies and the tactics sort of fall out of that. I think the challenge with digital, and I recognize that what I'm about to say can be somewhat controversial, but the challenge oftentimes I see with digital is we take a tactics in search of a strategy approach. Yeah, right? So it is digital kind of evolved chasing the shiny new toy, right? Social media became a big thing. Let's do social media. It's TikTok. It's like I heard a client the other day, a B2B client, say, I've got to be on TikTok. No, you do not need to be on TikTok. Just because you can do it doesn't mean that you should. And I think that is for me where I start, even if the biggest buzzword in the world right now is we need to do X, Y, and Z in the digital space. If it's not appropriate for the brand or it doesn't grow the business, it's not worth the investment.
Awesome. So Kelley, let's talk some very tactical things in that a lot of our clients want to know. When putting together a pay-per-click campaign, what do you look for? How do you build that? What does that look like to you? And how do you create a pay-per-click campaign?
Yeah, I think the number one and main component is research. So looking at those keywords very, very closely. I've had a lot of clients that think people are using search terms and they want to include it in their campaign, but when you look at the data, there's barely any searches for it. So looking at search volume, looking at demographics, where those searches are coming out of, looking at your competitors and what keywords they're using, looking at their ads, how they're trying to draw the user in. It's really a lot of research to start off. And then comes the strategy. So taking that list of keywords, trying to develop messaging that's really going to speak to your audience. If you think about the number of search results that pop up when you type something in to Google or Bing, it's overwhelming. And if you can't capture their attention within the first few seconds, it's likely that you're not going to get any clicks. And Google doesn't reward ads that don't get many clicks, so it can go downhill from there. So really identifying your target audience, knowing how to speak their language, how to get them to engage, and having a very strong call to action in those ads. And once you've gotten them to click, you've done pretty much the hardest part, leading them to a landing page that's built for conversions, ones that's going to capture their information right away. We sometimes suggest having a free downloadable resource as an incentive. You give something away for free, you've earned some trust. They might give you an email address and so they can get more newsletters or updates. So there's lots of different tactics into making a landing page that converts, but testing it, optimizing it, ensuring you're using a platform that has some kind of analytics or tracking mechanism in there so you can see how people are engaging with the landing page and how they're actually submitting their info. So I think all of that goes into making something successful and then just testing and optimizing from there.
Very good. So, when building any digital strategy or creating anything from a marketing standpoint, it's really about content and getting the right message out there. And I think most of our clients would agree with that. But how do you go about doing that, Michelle? What would your steps be to determining what content to pull together and what message to put out there?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's actually a big question. And I think the way that I tend to break it down or to think about it is all content now today has two components. There is the emotional component that makes us feel a certain way. And then there are all of the components that go into the secret sauce that makes content perform, right? And I think oftentimes we find it difficult to balance those two. You've got very creative agencies, for example, that focus on the captivating, compelling, emotional pieces. And then you've got more technical digital partners that focus on these are all the things that go into the secret sauce. And it really does have to be a collaboration between, sort of art and science. And when I think about creating content and creating it in a way that where it works as hard as it can, it is one, through the lens of the brand, right? What is the story we're telling? What is the emotional takeaway? How do we want people to consume it on a very subconscious level? And we make sure that those things are worked in, either in the beginning, the intro, or sandwiched in the middle. And then you build in all of the mechanics that you need from a digital perspective to do what it needs to do, right? Whether it's SEO or whether it's PPC or whether it's any other thing, lead gen or any other technical device.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'll add, with content, what we work for and what we look to do for our clients is show that they are industry leaders, that they have thought leadership in their respective fields. And it all then comes back to, how do we differentiate a company from all the others that are out there? A lot of our clients are B2B, industrial types of clients where, you might be like, okay, what are the differences? There are differences there. And the content that works so well showcases those differences. And again, the thought leadership is what needs to come through loud and clear.
Last one I'll ask. A lot has been said about lead generation. I think just about 10 out of 10 of our current prospects and clients are asking about lead generation and the role marketing plays in that. I think what we've learned is the pandemic has shifted a lot of the expectations of websites and other digital properties away from passive tools to things that drive leads. When you're building and creating a marketing strategy, how important is lead generation to what you do, and how do you calculate that in? How do you work that into your strategy?
Yeah, I would say that lead generation is a huge part to any campaign strategy, and it's the number one results that most of our clients want to see. You can share impressions at how much ad visibility you have, but when it comes down to getting a phone number or an email address and then closing a sale, that's where it really matters. So having the right type of conversion tracking set up is very important, whether that's tracking URLs on your website or having automations through a tool like HubSpot, where you can immediately follow up with those leads as soon as they give you their information, or put them into a drip campaign where you nurture them through different touches and different steps. But I think that is the number one piece of gold that most clients want, is that contact name, email address, and phone number. So there's different tactics to getting that right away. When you introduce somebody with an ad or a landing page, giving them a free resource to download, or just asking for an email at the top of the page and showing them what kind of great content they could expect to receive if they signed up for it. But I think once you've got them basically on the hook, trying to develop a really successful nurture campaign so that you can move them through that buyer's journey and close the sale.
Excellent.
Yeah, marketing is not effective if it doesn't drive sales, if it doesn't do its part to help drive leads along the line so that the sales folks can then take over and hopefully close the deal. So we get back to the idea too of multiple touches. So good marketing will have multiple touches. We've talked about the different channels and the different ways that people consume information. So good marketing will have multiple touches, again, showcase thought leadership and the differentiators, and help move those cold prospects into warmer prospects, and then move them along the sales funnel. Hopefully they become closed deals. That's what we're looking for, is to help close the deal.
I actually find this idea of lead gen being a very interesting question, right? Because in many ways, it's another form of remarketing. And we've been doing remarketing for years, right? And so, it's just another channel. It's another device to stay in front, to Laurel's point, to have multiple touch points. So, is it essential? It's essential for every business. This definition of a lead may vary for a B2B company versus B2C or not. It just depends. But I think it is, in my mind, it's actually nothing more than yet another device to remarket, to stay in front of, to cultivate, to close, to do all of those things. They should be factored in to every business that you work on, regardless of the nature of the business. Like I said, that definition of that lead may change, but it has to be there no matter what.
Good stuff.
I could probably also just say, though, that a sign of the times is it's a lot harder to get someone's contact information nowadays. I mean, if you've opened up your Gmail account and seen the spam emails, people are holding on a little tighter to their personal information in order to not get so many spam calls or emails. So really deploying the right tactics to get them to pass over that very coveted information and open the door for you to reach out to them and to continue engaging with them. And I think the sign of a good campaign strategy is when you start seeing your open rates continue being very high throughout your entire marketing email strategy, or you start seeing call-ins from a lead gen form or page. So really just trying to be creative and find a way to build that trust right up front so that you can basically get the open door to continue working with that person.
Well, I really appreciate you guys taking the time and sharing your insight and wisdom to our audience. And it's been extremely valuable for me, and I'm sure it has for everyone as well. If you've heard anything from us or would love to chat with one of these folks on the call or any of our other on our marketing team, we are available to have conversations. We love having conversations, and we're happy to have them with you about things you're trying to accomplish or questions you may have about marketing in general or the specific problem or issue you may have for your company. So we'd be happy to chat with you. Feel free to reach out to us. You can find us at thinkempirical.com and check us out there. And you can see all of our contact information on the website as well. Thank you.